You ready? All right, here we go. Hello there. Welcome back to the Senate Podcast. I'm excited. It feels like it's been forever, but we're finally on episode 43, and I'm joined today by my co-host Tony Quinones. So how you doing? How's it been?
It's been great, man. I've talked on like 2 episodes, but I recently was in a 3-show play. Nothing big, just in a community theater in my city, and then I took a week off from work, and I got to chill, play some games, and then Wednesday to Friday I went to Lancaster, and I didn't check the weather, so it was raining a little bit, and I couldn't be out as much as I wanted to, but I still did, some fun stuff. Saw a play over there, had a tour of
That's
this
awesome.
Amish homestead, and just took a trip by myself for the first time, and it was great. So I'm just in a rare moment where I'm feeling on top of the world, and I don't ever want to come down.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're gonna do an episode dedicated to the projects we've been working on, which flows nicely into me promoting, I guess, the last episode that I did. It was an episode in a live, studio. So it was in person, and it was about Easter because we recorded it the day before Easter. But anyways, been working hard on setting up a studio in person. It's coming along pretty good. So we still got some work to do. We got about another 2 to 3 weeks of work on it, but it turned out pretty good. So check out episode 42, our last episode for that. But yeah, Tony, did you happen to watch any of that video?
I haven't yet, but I'll check it out. See the quality. It seems like an interesting conversation.
Yeah, so I try to keep it topical. You know what I mean? So the last episode me and you did was part of our Star Wars retrospectives. We want to take a little bit of a break from that because a lot goes into those videos. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So we want to do something a little bit more fun today. And then, of course, last week was Easter. So I figured it'd be a good time to talk about Easter and just kind of make it a little bit more of a topical video. It was very interesting. So, yeah, super excited about that. Also, I guess what's new with you, Tony? For me, I've been kind of doing a lot of filming and editing. So I've been talking to a lot of people either at work or just some friends, about filming, about producing videos, about editing. So I've been doing a lot. I've been, we hinted at it a little bit in episode, was it 41, part 1 and part 2 about, kind of the stuff I've been doing, but I'll maybe put some in this video, or actually I just made an Instagram to show off my, my edits and kind of some of the projects I've been working on because I don't really have a place to promote it. So I guess on there I'm going to be more so promoting the things I've been doing, but I've been doing a lot of filming, a lot of editing, just different things than podcasting. I've been doing, color grading, audio design, stuff like that. Editing a lot of 4K video, which has been interesting, and filming a lot of different filming techniques I've been using. It's been a lot of fun, man. So I'm excited to be able to produce more videos and put some more stuff out there. I always love podcasting though. Podcasting is my bread and butter. It's when I talk to people, about what I do, I tell them I have a love for podcasting and audio. I love this stuff. I've been listening to podcasts now for going on probably 13 years. So I'm an OG, not an OG, but I've been listening to podcasts for a while. I love podcasting. So super happy we get to do this show. And I have big plans for this show, but at the same time, it's like this is just my baby. I don't even want to change it. I just love doing it. I just have fun doing it. I don't want to change anything about it. I just want to get on here and talk. So yeah, I've been kind of busy lately, but I'm still glad we get to get on here and talk about movies and games and whatever we want to talk about. So that's new with me. I want to hear about your acting because I'm doing behind the camera stuff. You're doing in front of the camera work. So
yeah. So I'm not gonna tell the whole story, but basically in like mid to late January, I auditioned for this play. It's I don't know if you're familiar with the movie 12 Angry Men. It's
Hmm.
a 1957 movie. I think it might have been a play first. I can't remember. I think. But the version we did is just called 12 Angry Jurors because it also includes women. Like it takes place in like the 80s where like women were first allowed to be in juries, and like it added like a different
It's kind of
dynamic
interesting.
and twist to it. There's actually a version of the play that I want to try to find a copy of that's all women, and like I hear it's like really funny. And then we did 3 shows, and like it was probably the most rewarding, challenging, and fun experience. Like like I got to really like there was only one other person, a lady who was also a novice who had never done any acting. So like, and like everybody else had been, in plays and stuff for a pretty long time. A lot of them are like members or creative colleagues, I guess, in the community that
Yeah.
put on the play. And so like I, was like, okay, I really need to be sure that, I do the necessary work that, I try to do a great performance. You know, my character didn't have like a ton of dialogue, so the the challenge for me, and I'm based on what everyone's saying and stuff, I really pulled it off, and I'm happy about that. It's like,
Good.
how do you? Cause, my acting teacher has this line: "There are no small parts, just small actors." Like I'm sure, like we've all seen a movie where like somebody had maybe like one scene, but like they were just really memorable.
Yeah.
So that was part of the fun of the challenge. Is like, how do I make this character like still have a change throughout this story? That's mainly in his mind and emotion, since he isn't saying a whole lot. It's mainly like he's just thrown into this crazy situation like
Yeah.
everybody else. And I really learned a lot. It was sad too because like I had to, like I spent so much time with this character, and I had to say bye to him when it was all over. And like I got emotional, like on the last day. Like I went to my car to like drive home, and like I just started choking up. I'm like, I hope nobody's around, and so I'm just kind of chilling right now. And then there's another play in October where the auditions start in June, and it's a Agatha Christie story. And I love murder mysteries,
That's
so
interesting. Let me know about that.
I
I'll come out.
I cannot wait. That could be like my like my
Yeah.
magnum opus. Like I hope I land a part that I just really get to stick my teeth into. Other than that, I'm actually thinking about maybe I got inspired to resurrect this play idea I had like years and years ago. And maybe I was talking to one of the ladies yesterday because I had to meet up with her at Wawa for something. And, I was, she like encouraged me to just, like write down my ideas, and like, like maybe I could like adapt one of my plays in here and, have it be performed and do like other roles, like whether that's like stage hand,
Yeah.
something behind the scenes. Maybe even eventually I could direct the play, maybe, or be a producer or something. So that's
Yeah.
something I'm really thinking about doing. And I don't want to say much about it now because I just started it yesterday, and it could very well not go anywhere. But I have an idea for a project, like a just a
Okay.
project that
Okay.
it's basically a way I think I finally figured out a way to combine like blogging and podcasting.
Okay.
So I might do
I'm
that.
interested.
I'm working on this one. It's basically like I had the idea because like there are certain songs that like I really resonate with, and I thought it'd be fun to just like read the lyrics to one of them and kind of do like a breakdown, like how people that write the songs break them down, but it's like not me claiming I wrote it, but me like, like saying line by line. And it's like, yeah, I really resonate with this and stuff. And other stuff that because like there are things that I want to talk about, but I don't necessarily feel like could be a YouTube video.
Yeah.
So, like I'm working on ways to potentially talk about that stuff. So, I'm just trying to really spread my wings and be creative on my own. It's been way too long, and I just miss it.
I'm so glad you started talking about being creative because this is a creative outlet for us. And I was talking to a guy at work today because he mentioned that he was a content creator. And, no one can tell by just looking at you if you're a content, if you do, stuff like this or not. So I told him, I was like, I film, I edit, I podcast, I produce, and all this stuff. So we started talking, and we started talking about creative outlets and how good it is to just be creative. So I actually had an idea today too, yesterday actually, and I was talking to my friend about it, and I'll throw it out there, see what you think. I'm thinking about doing another live show for this podcast, but having live music and like opening up with a live band. I think that'd be
Oh
very
wow.
interesting. And then going from that in straight into a podcast and maybe even having music in the background, but also like talking to the musicians, I think would be a very interesting
So
dynamic
basically,
to it.
like a late night talk show.
Kind of.
Kind of.
I think that'd be very interesting
I
because
think that'd
I'm a
be fun.
musician.
That'd be fun.
I
That
have
could give me like that could give us an opportunity to be like more like theatrical
I think so
and
too. Yeah.
outlandish.
Because I already know somebody who could just do the camera and be, help produce it. And then I'm a musician. I know some musicians that want to do it, want to open up and stuff. So I think it would be some of the greatest musicians I've ever met in my entire life. So I think it would be a very cool idea to do something a little bit more musical.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that what else? So this is going to be an episode where we just kind of talk about things. But all right, Tony, let me hit you with I was gonna drop something on you, but I'll save it for another video. Little tease. I back something on Kickstarter, but we'll get into that maybe next episode. But
Okay.
this episode is episode 43. You already know by the title what it's gonna be. So let me just drop something here that nobody knows about, and it's a question. Are you ready? I know you're probably gonna have a good answer.
I'm
All
listening.
right. What video game city would you want to live in? I know it's a random question, but it's
what
just been on my
video
mind
game?
lately because you hear the question, what video game would you want to live in? What world? But not world, just what city? What city would you want to live in?
Off
'Cause
the top, I'll pick off the top of my head so that I'm not
Go
just
ahead. Yeah.
like Patrick in that one SpongeBob episode where he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna pick Midgar in
Okay.
Final Fantasy VII, specifically Sector 5, because it's like a slum. Like
Is that the one Jesse lives in?
No, that's the one that Aerith lives in.
Okay, Aerith.
Because it is just like the vibes in there were like when I got to that part of the game, you're walking with Aerith and you're walking to her house. Like it was just so magical. It's like it's it kind of feels like a Pixar or like classic Disney movie where like Cloud, like he's fighting with Avalanche and stuff, and then he ends up in this part of Midgar that's like like really chill, peaceful, and almost beautiful, and it's like there's like this place that's like a daycare or like a school for children and stuff, and she helps out there, and she like has this beautiful house. Like the reveal of her house and how they made it look in the remake compared to the original game, it's just so pretty. So I would just really love to just live here and just be friends with Aerith, maybe be in a relationship with Aerith. I didn't say that. It's just such a peaceful, because I kind of like the idea of like, I don't know, like finding beauty in, I'm going to quote Rihanna, but finding love in a hopeless place. I thought it was beauty. But yeah, like.
That's actually a good pick. I thought you were going to pick, well, it was between Midgar and Traverse Town. So.
Oh, flip. I might, yeah, dude, actually Traverse Town. I forgot about,
Okay.
Traverse Town's so good. Like when you get there and that like tranquil music, oh my god, it's so.
Okay, my pick probably would be something a little bit more, I guess, tranquil. So it would have been a Nintendo pick, but I had to think too hard about what Nintendo city I'd want to live in or whatever. So my go-to when I think about something like this, my favorite game ever is Sly Cooper, and it's hub world, so it's a city and then another city, then another city. So I have a hard time picking just one because I love all of them. But there is one video game that sticks out to me so much because the city is alive. There's two versions of this city, and I will say the game is BioShock, and there's two different versions. So you have Rapture, which is the underwater city, and I don't mess with water. I don't like water. I'm going on a cruise soon, so we'll see how that goes. But I don't like being underwater. I don't like that kind of stuff. It freaks me out. So my pick would be Columbia, the city in the skies, city in the
Oh,
clouds from BioShock Infinite, and that's because the city is so unique. It's so cool. It's so inspired by, it's really I think the 1890s, but it's 1910, 1920s, America with the style of it. But it's just so interesting to me. So I love that. I love thinking about just a little brain exercise, thought exercise of what video game city you'd like to be in. There's so many good ones you can pick from, but yeah, just off the top, those are some memorable cities. Yeah,
you
definitely.
said you're afraid of water, and that's why you wouldn't want to live in Rapture. I'm afraid of
Yeah,
heights, and that's why I wouldn't want to live there.
it's interesting.
Just
Isn't Midgar like above?
no,
I guess the slums are
there's
below.
like above the plate is where the rich people live, and then
Yeah.
under the plate is where the all the poor people live.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to live amongst them rich people because some of them are. I mean, some of them are just trying to find their way, but there's the people that work in Shinra and they're bad news. I don't want to be close to
So
them.
that's what's so funny about Bioshock because Rapture, the rich people lived in Rapture because it was elite to go live underwater. But I feel like Columbia, that was like a form of like uh, religious what's it called when people would come to America
Oh yeah, yeah,
to have like those freedoms. So it was like Columbia was made up of all these different groups, all these different classes and stuff. So like the slums in Columbia are actually super interesting, but Columbia was more of like anybody's town. You know what I mean? Anybody
yeah.
could come here. It was for the people.
I want to finally play through that trilogy soon, and I
So
think
good.
Infinite's the one I'm excited to play the most because it's kind of polarizing.
It's very
I
polarizing. It's been on
found
my
out.
mind because it's a
I found
constant
out.
discussion online.
I found out what the
Yeah.
end twist is in a video, but I honestly don't really remember.
Oh, okay.
I don't really. I
You
mean,
got to
like,
experience it yourself.
I know it
Yeah.
has to do with like quantum stuff, but aside from that, I kind of forget.
Yeah. So that's a fun thought exercise. But, I love talking video games. However, the bulk of our conversation today is going to be about comic book media, comic book media, comic book movies, comic book shows. We're gonna stay away from the actual comic books themselves because that's just a whole range of topics. We're gonna narrow it down.
And
So
I don't really read them anyway.
yeah,
So
yeah, I'm pretty big into them, but lately it's just so many that let's just stick to the shows and movies and,
yeah.
and whatnot. So Tony, underrated comic book shows and movies. I got some underrated ones. I wanted you to pick some underrated ones because with comic books, movies, and shows, a lot of it is overrated. I'd say about 80% is overrated.
Yeah, like they're like you look at the critical rating of some of the MCU movies, and they're ones that I like, but I'm like, bro, I mean, I'd be surprised if like a lot of those critics that rated it positively didn't just say, "Yeah, it was pretty good." Like if
Yeah,
any of them are genuinely saying they're like really good or great movies, I'm like, I
yeah.
don't
I think a
know.
lot of it's overrated because comic book, when you say comic book movie or comic book show, it's carried by the, pre existing nature of that IP, which would be, Spider Man or Batman or whatever. So, like, the movie could be actually bad, but in reality, it's made better by the character because the character is already
Yeah,
pre-established.
yeah.
So I think it's more interesting to kind of talk about the underrated shows and or movies. So give me what's an underrated comic
Uh,
book show or movie?
I'm just gonna start from the bottom of my list and work my way up. It's not my stuff isn't necessarily in any order. except for like my top movie and probably show. But aside from that, I just kind of wrote them as I thought. But I'm gonna say I don't know how you're gonna feel about this one, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, I'm
Okay.
not saying this is necessarily like a great movie or a hidden gem, but dude, how many times have you heard people criticize comic book movies because, they're too big? It's always like, oh, they're trying to save a city, or they're trying to save the world, or they're trying to save the freaking universe or
Yeah.
whatever. And then Marvel comes along and they give us a slice of life, cute, fun, breezy, small movie, and everybody trashes it. Like it's not, like it's
Pun
not
intended.
exactly, stylish. Like I didn't watch it and go, wow, this is like a really stylish movie. I feel, like Edgar Wright would have never been able to replicate this. No, not at all. But it, has some fun action sequences, really funny jokes. I'd say one of the funnier MCU
I think it's
movies.
one of the
Like they,
the one of the
yeah, like
funnier one for
a
sure.
lot of times I think when they try to do humor, it sucks. But Ant-Man and the Wasp, like that humor is just like so specific, and it just feels so regular and earnest. And my favorite thing about the movie, and I noticed because I was gonna make a video about it a while ago, but I never did. But like the whole movie is actually about like the stability or instability of relationships, because you have Scott and his team, and then throughout the movie, because like he has to juggle like not trying to get in trouble because he's on house arrest and trying to be there for his daughter and stuff, so he has to like
Yeah.
hop back and forth, and then that causes some friction with his team, but they ultimately stay together because they're friends and they care about each other. And then Ghost, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated MCU villains because she's just somebody who's
She's
sick
interesting. Yeah.
and she's lonely and she can't connect to people because she has this thing that causes her to phase in and out of reality, and she's just trying to cure that. And
Yeah.
then her fractured relationship with Lawrence Fishburne's character, I forgot his name.
Yeah.
And then I love, how do they beat the villain? Not by fighting her, but Wasp touches her and then uses some quantum energy mumbo jumbo to cure her condition. And now she can finally feel human connection again. And she does, and she turns herself in. Like it's not a movie about trying to beat a villain. It's not a movie about
Yeah.
trying to really save anybody. It's just a movie about the human condition and what that means, what it means to, be part of a team and be part of a unit and care about each other. And yeah, it's kind of a shallow movie. It's not that deep, but I don't know. I saw it with one of my friends and we had a great time. And every time I've rewatched it since, I just appreciate that it's one of the
That's
few
actually such a good pick.
MCU movies that's
Yeah.
just trying to be a fun little thing. And I want more of that.
That is such a good pick. Wow. I really didn't consider that. That's the one movie I was looking through all these movies and shows, and that's the one I didn't really consider, but I think that's one of that's one of the best picks for this because it's very underrated when you put it that way.
Yeah, I think
It was not appreciated at the time.
I think it's better
Yeah.
than some of the other movies from that phase. Hot take.
Yeah, no, I like that. Okay, so that's great, actually. So we'll do like our top three, not top three. We'll do the top three, like underrated shows and movies.
Okay.
I got to put this in there because from the very first time I saw this movie, I was in love with it. And here's me, in love with it. I'm just I love the movie, super high on it, and I feel like the world just was going down, trashing this movie, bringing it down the whole time. That is Iron Man 3.
I can't believe I didn't think. Yeah. How did I not
It
think of it?
is
I felt that way
such a good movie. Just in its entirety. Even the plot twist of subverting your expectations about the Mandarin was a great plot twist. Didn't have the best villain, but the character development for Robert Downey Jr. in this was one of the best in the whole MCU.
I think that's his best performance, second to Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame.
Infinity War,
Like,
I
that's
agree.
definitely up there.
Yeah. Iron Man 3, great movie all around. Super cool what they did with the character of Iron Man, the character of Tony Stark, and the difference, obviously the suits and him not having the suit. I think that was a cool contrast in the movie. Some of the coolest set pieces in that movie with the
Oh yeah.
plane, him fighting without the suit was a cool thing. It was awesome. The whole set piece with his house getting destroyed and falling into the water was
Oh yeah,
amazing.
and like he's summoning the armor onto Pepper.
Yes,
Are you
on
kidding
the
me, dude?
pepper. Yeah,
That's awesome.
movie was fantastic. So that's one of my picks. So give me an underrated show or movie.
All right, underrated. I'm gonna say, I don't know if you knew this was actually a Marvel property because it's kind of a rare, obscure comic series that's not in print anymore. I don't think it's been for a while. Big
What are you talking
Hero
about?
6.
I did know that.
Big
Okay, yeah,
Hero
I knew that.
6. I don't feel like this movie got its due. Like, yeah, is it
I know what you're
somewhat
saying. Yeah,
predictable? In some ways, yeah. Like, like the fact that, spoilers, his brother was gonna die was pretty telegraphed. But dude, the thing I love about this movie is that it's a superhero team movie that the only reason that the team forms isn't because they want to fight crime, isn't because they're altruistic. It's to help one of their friends who's experiencing immense pain and loss in his life. And they're like, if helping you with this mission will help you grieve and, be able to work through your pain, then we'll do that for you, buddy, because we're here for you. And then that leads to them genuinely trying to stop a guy who's trying to do a thing because he has his own pain, because he lost somebody. And, it has
yeah,
a lot of heart, that scene where, he's watching the video of his brother on Baymax's screen, and
yeah,
he puts his hand on the screen. That chokes me up every time.
yeah.
The set pieces are actually pretty freaking well
Amazing.
directed. It has a song
Yeah,
by Fall Out Boy that I just really like. It has some fun characters. It brought us Baymax, who's one of the
it was
most
awesome.
adorable mascots in any Disney movie, period. I freaking love that dude. And, like, it's not, like, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a great movie, but it's always been one of my favorite comic book movies because, again, like Ant-Man and the Wasp, it's not really about the spectacle of it all. That's just a byproduct of the story, but it's, just a human story about human characters experiencing human things. And I think it kind of flew under the radar. And whenever I hear people say that it's like mid or that it sucks or whatever, I just don't understand how they can feel that way.
I love that pick. I remember the first time I watched that movie. I was like just kind of watching. We had it on. I can't remember exactly when this was, but anyways, it was on, and I wasn't really paying attention. But then as the movie started going on, I started watching and getting more into it because I was like, wow, this is actually a really good movie. So I like that pick. I think I know what you're saying by it being underrated, and I agree. You don't see people talk about this enough, but it's a great movie. Hidden gem, not a really hidden gem, but it's underrated for how good it actually is.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's pretty good. So my pick is gonna blow you away. Fantastic Four, 2005, the original.
I've heard other people say this, so I kind of understand why.
Okay, hear me out. Not the greatest movie in the world, but this is a fantastic comic book movie. It's like a comic book came to life. And those, that's going to be a theme throughout all my picks here because a comic book movie should be a comic book brought to life. Okay? It doesn't have to be the greatest movie ever, but if it's a comic book brought to life. And what do comic books do the best? Tell stories using superheroes. The story can be whatever. This movie, okay, Fantastic Four 2005 was like the pinnacle of these characters. They brought these characters literally to life on the big screen. You remember these performances. The each of the Fantastic Four members and Doctor Doom, all of them were amazing. I mean, they were cast perfectly. Maybe except for Jessica Alba, but anyways, the characters were amazing. And this is one of the best comic book movies because it is a comic book brought to life. Like a lot of my picks for my, you know, favorite comic book movies, my top comic book movies. They are comic books brought to life. You want to talk about a comic book brought to life, think about the Raimi trilogy. And then you think about, this Fantastic Four movie. Think about the original, of the, MCU movies like Iron Man, Captain America. I love comic book movies brought to life. There's a difference between just an amazing movie involving comic book characters and then comic books that are movies. There's a difference. So I think that Fantastic Four, underrated. People are like, oh, that movie's not great. Okay, but it is a comic book movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my whole shtick with that. So yeah, that's my pick for that.
I mean, like, just like how they made the Thing look in that movie. I think they nailed it.
Practical.
They freaking nailed it. Yeah. They freaking nailed
it. Didn't have to be like, it didn't have to look perfect, but it looked like a comic book.
Yeah.
And they made a compelling story with it.
Yeah, for sure. You said we're only saying 3, right?
Yeah.
So I forgot. I was thinking of one that I wanted to put on here. So since we're only doing 3, I'm going to do that one. And it's not even on my list because I forgot. Ang Lee's Hulk. Ang Lee's Hulk. So
it has to be for similar reasons to my Fantastic Four.
I was obsessed with this movie as a kid, but ask me if I knew what the heck was going on. Absolutely not.
It was fun.
I rewatched this like a few years ago as being, like a young adult. And dude, once you understand this movie, what it is, it's, it's basically a psychological drama about a guy who has repressed childhood trauma and he's processing that. And then he gets hit with these, radiation, and that they like kind of change it up a little bit to where like his dad did experiments on him. And it's like, he has something in his cells that made him become the Hulk, but that's kind of like a metaphor for, like trauma and stuff and like psychological damage. And like, it's not, it tries to be comic booky sometimes in ways that feel jarring. Like they don't feel like they're from the same movie. Like I wish they would have played it a little more straight in some areas, but like, dude, how often do we get comic book movies that are just trying to be about human drama, that are actually trying to explore things and have themes and say stuff about life and make you think and make you feel? They tried to do this with the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. And if you see all the scenes that they cut out of that movie, criminal, because they actually gave depth to the story. We got that depth in this movie, and a lot of people didn't appreciate it. I don't think people were quite ready for this movie at the time because, this was around, when we had the Raimi Spider-Man movies, X-Men, so like, it took a big left turn and a lot of people thought that was strange, but like, dude, like this movie, now that I can actually understand what it's about, I can be like, dang, a lot of these themes hit hard. And I know in like 5 or so years,
that's a great pick.
I could watch it again at like a different stage of my life and process it differently. And I feel like it's one of the few comic book movies where you can watch it and understand it a little better and in a different way. And it tried to be more than just a mindless Hulk movie. Hulk smash. Like he does a lot of smashing in this movie, and it's great. And I really like how he looks and stuff. How he's like really big and he gets bigger the angrier he gets and stuff. But like,
I love that aspect.
I don't know if I don't think I love this movie, but I appreciate it because it, that was back when like people making comic book movies tried to do more interesting things. And now, like, if they could make a Hulk movie, like if Marvel actually had the film rights, it wouldn't be anything like this. I doubt it. Are you kidding me? This might be the only time we'll ever get a Hulk movie that actually tries to be about, psychological and emotional trauma, which is a key thing of that character. So appreciate it as a time capsule and probably a once in a lifetime lightning in a bottle thing that we may never see. So I appreciate it for those
reasons. You have
reasons.
very thought-provoking answers. Mine, I hope they are. My final pick for most underrated is, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be controversial, but that's what we're here for. That was a great pick. All right. Mine is Black Adam.
I kind of agree, actually.
I
expected to not like this movie, and I was like, that was pretty good.
So that was one of the main reasons I put it on here. People were really going into this thinking, okay, here we go, just another superhero movie. And I think they kind of play into that with the story of the movie, where Black Adam himself comes off as a typical villain. And then the Justice Society comes off as like a typical just team trying to take down the villain. But as you go through the story, everything kind of gets subverted. Everything kind of flips. Black Adam kind of becomes the good guy, and the good guys trying to stop the bad guy kind of realize that they're working for somebody who is, has the wrong intentions. So really, them not following their orders is the right thing to do. Kind of like it's just kind of subverts expectations on a lot of levels. And I think a lot of that is driven by Doctor Fate, which is one of the greatest
Oh yeah,
castings and characters in any comic book movie ever,
him
and
and
that's in Black Adam.
Hawkman are incredible,
Yes.
and we may never see them play those characters again, and that makes me sad.
We won't. We won't ever
Yeah.
see them play those characters again. We probably won't ever see The Rock play Black Adam again. Which, say what you will about The Rock, he doesn't. He plays the same, character in everything, but his Black Adam was great. I'll put it that way. It wasn't the greatest comic book character portrayal ever, but I mean, he didn't even have the pointy ears in this. But he was a good Black Adam. Overall, good story, great story, and this Justice Society was amazing. They managed to do something great with a movie that was supposed to not be great, and I think that makes it very underrated. Similar to some of my honorable mentions, like I think the first Aquaman did the same thing. It's supposed to be a generic movie about Aquaman, and it turned out to be amazing. Same thing with Captain America. I think Captain America is also very underrated as a comic book movie because of the sci-fi elements they introduced. But anyways, those are my picks. So I think as we go on with the rest of the video, I think we're about halfway through. So let's get into our favorite shows and movies, our favorite comic book shows and movies, because these are going to be controversial. These are also going to be, we're going to justify them and underrated, why they're kind of underrated. And we think that, they're good and they're our favorites. So we're going to do this in 4 steps, Tony. Are you ready? Reason I say that is we're going to give all 5 at once. We're going to give all 5, starting from least to best. We're going to rank
Least
them.
to best.
And then,
wow. Okay.
yeah, we're going to start at our, our 5, and then we're going to work up. I had this idea of doing it this way. I hope it works out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say why we like it and then why we placed it at, the placement that we did. Instead of going back and forth, we're going to rapid fire all 5 and then discuss our list of 5. And we're going to start with either shows or movies. Which one do you want to do first, shows or movies?
I'll do shows first.
Okay, let's do shows. You go first. So you're going to give me the list, and then you're going to explain to me why your list is the way your list is. Because we all know these shows and movies for the most part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I want to know in your head, why do you place them where you place them? So go ahead. What's your
after I
shows?
say each, say why it's placed where it is.
Say them all and
Okay.
then go through them.
All right. Now, let me preface this by saying there are a lot of comic book shows I haven't seen the entirety of, but I'm still going to put what I have seen because 1, I didn't have that much to pick from, and 2, because it's still great. I could still love these shows even if I haven't seen them all presently. Okay. So starting from the bottom to the top, I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to say, I'm trying to pick between these two for, I'm going to say The Flash season 1, Stargirl. I'm like halfway through the 2nd season. I haven't seen the 3rd season. Swamp Thing, Daredevil, and Spectacular Spider-Man.
I will allow that. Spectacular Spider-Man is amazing. I think it is one of the greatest superhero shows ever. So, okay, explain to me why you just did that.
Why I just picked. Okay, so do you remember when The Flash was about to come out? And I
remember it.
I think the general reaction was, "What? Huh?
What?
What?
Why?" Yeah.
And then you see the 1st season, and it's so fun, so lighthearted. You care about the characters.
But then that ending,
The freaking special effects are actually good. I've never
pretty good.
seen
Yeah.
good special effects in a sci-fi in like a show. Shows have always had bad special effects. I mean, Smallville, hello, it looks like
Yeah.
crap. The Flash looks good. Grodd looks good. The Reverse Flash, one of the best comic book villains in any comic book media ever, period. I don't want to hear it. He was freaking amazing. He was terrifying. It made you guess. It had twists and turns. It had the Flash traveling through time and not knowing what was going to happen with that.
He is
and
my
that finale,
favorite comic book villain.
That finale, gangbusters.
If you don't cry, you have no soul.
Freaking awesome, man. Freaking awesome. And then I say Stargirl because
I need to watch that. It looks so good.
actually I don't know if I forget what my sequencing was, but I like Stargirl more than Swamp Thing. So I'm gonna say Swamp Thing.
Okay.
Dude, a lot of the effects in the show were practical. Dude, the freaking Swamp Thing suit was all practical.
It looks amazing.
One of the greatest things, dude. Freaking the guy that plays him is somebody who usually plays like people who don't really have dialogue. Like he played Jason Voorhees in some movies, like people like that. Dude, his performance is incredible. Like he makes you sympathize with this creature, you know, like even because he doesn't have a ton of lines when he is on screen, but like his facial expressions just sell you on how he's feeling. You know, freaking Crystal Reed plays Abby Arcane. Incredible performance. She brings so much depth, and there's this one scene in particular where she reveals a tragic thing from her backstory to Alec before he becomes Swamp Thing, and her facial expressions and how like she like cries in this very specific. I just felt so bad for her, man. It was great.
That it gets very good reviews.
Yeah, the villain was kind of over the top a little bit, but he was, you know, still pretty intimidating. You know, typical rich guy who has a lot of external control and stuff. And like they give him a little bit of depth later on, and I thought that was pretty good. There's this one side character who, for the longest time, I thought was just a bland piece of bread. And I'm like, I don't know why you're here. I don't care about you. And then they do the unthinkable. They made him interesting. Once they've introduced his relationship with his mom, it was good. It actually has a character from Justice League Dark in it. I'm not going to spoil who, but I was like, I know who that is. This is cool. This is cool. So, you know, it actually got canceled before the first season was even done because of financial stuff and whatnot, which is one of the biggest tragedies on this planet that's ever happened. Freaking sucks.
That's the gamble with trying to be creative and not trying to just appeal masses. Yeah.
But yeah, freaking Titans got 3 seasons. That show looks like dog doo-doo. Come on. So okay. So
it's so hit or miss. It's so hit or miss.
So Stargirl, so much heart, so charming. I really care about these characters like they're my own children. Brett Basinger, one of the greatest castings for any comic book lead role ever in any comic book media. She is so good, so charming, so sympathetic, so likable, so charismatic. The action scenes are freaking peak. I shared one in the Discord. I don't know if you watched it, but I couldn't believe this was a show.
Oh yeah, it looks amazing.
It didn't start out on the CW, but then it went to the CW. I think by the second season it was still great. There's a villainous character who's great, probably one of the best characters. There's the lady who plays Wildcat, great. Every time she's sad, it just breaks my heart. You know, it just David Arquette plays Stargirl's stepfather, and he would be a good Uncle Ben. Like he's just that kind of character, like, you know, just a great role model, just a loving father who takes care of his family and will protect them, even though he doesn't actually have any powers, but he will die trying. And it's just great. And the villain in the second season is freaking awesome. It's like kind of like
I need to watch it.
Horror vibes a little bit. It's great. It's on Tubi, so watch it before it gets taken off.
Oh yeah, I should do that.
All right, Daredevil. I mean, I haven't seen the third season, but dude, I wanted to watch the other shows, but then I kind of didn't feel like it. So I'm just gonna watch season 3 by itself because I can't wait anymore.
Hurry up and watch season 3.
But I
What?
mean, dude, when this show came out at the first, dude, I was sold in the scene where he's talking
Immediately.
to the priest in the first few minutes of episode 1. I was like, this is gonna be good, isn't it? This is gonna be, and it was freaking awesome. The action, dude, the action scenes, the freaking cinematography, the performances. Probably
Charlie Cox as Daredevil is perfect.
Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, Eldon Henson
And
as Foggy, who some people hated. Screw you, Foggy is the best boy that ever best boyed. Leave him alone. Deborah Ann Wall as Karen Page, freaking great.
come on. Come on.
Even the lady who plays Vanessa is great, and she doesn't
She's coming
have
back.
that big of a role. Yeah, I know. I saw that
Yeah.
they recast, and then they were like, "Why did we do that again?"
Yeah. So if we ever talk about our top comic book castings, of course, Charlie Cox and Vincent
Yo,
D'Onofrio
dude,
are
I
going to be
still
They're perfect.
forget that Charlie Cox isn't actually blind.
He's so good.
I'll see videos of him where he's just like actually looking at people, and I'm like, I thought he was blind. What the heck? Like, he's just so convincing as a blind guy. And dude, season 2 when they bring in John Bernthal as Punisher.
Okay,
Mwah,
perfect.
Mwah, come
Wait
on.
till you see Bullseye.
Come on.
Wait.
I've heard great things. And then last but not least, Spectacular Spider-Man. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. I haven't seen all of the 90s show. You know, it's a product of its time. You know, it's cheesy, but it's great for sure. You know, it looks really cool. You know, it feels like the classic comic books ripped from the pages. But Spectacular Spider-Man gave me the take on Peter Parker and his mythology and everything that I kind of prefer. Like the same thing with the Amazing Spider-Man movies, where it's just a little more grounded, a little grittier. I love you know, his relationship with Gwen and Harry and how tragic that ended up being. His friendship with Eddie Brock, you know, like you see it slowly fall apart, and you know him get the symbiote.
The whole symbiote arc
is just great stuff,
perfect.
dude.
Yeah,
that scene, I don't want to spoil it, but when actually, yeah, spoilers, when he gets the suit off of him by having a flashback of Uncle Ben and all of his loved ones, dude, that's maybe my favorite version of that kind of moment that I've seen so far. It was great. The animation looks weird. The character models look weird. I'm not gonna lie, they're not great. They look like they didn't have that much of a budget. Maybe they didn't. But like everything else, like it's just so well written. It just cuts to the core of Peter Parker. You know, how like you just see his struggle and you know him trying to balance everything, and it sets up a pretty promising second season that we never got and we'll probably never get because there's no justice in this world. But I think it might be my favorite comic book show because it was just, you know, the take on that whole story that I really like and it really resonates with me. And
it's so
yeah,
good.
shout out to Josh Keaton, who's probably like top 3 Spider-Man actors in general. You know, like he kind of paved the way for that like younger version of Peter who, you know, still has some of the gravitas of the Christopher Daniel Barnes version, but you know, is younger and kind of going in a different way. And then Yuri Lowenthal kind of took everybody and blended them into one performance. I don't know how he did it, but I think, you know, I love the show, but I also rate it so highly because, you know, Josh Keaton, I think, kind of paved the way for a new version of Spider-Man.
Like a perfect,
kind of.
yeah. He had like a perfect take on the character, and Josh Keaton just voiced a certain character in the finale of Invincible Season 2. I won't spoil anything.
Oh, sweet.
It's crazy. I maybe should have put Invincible on my list, but I think I stayed away from doing animated shows and movies myself just because I've seen so many live action versus animated that I could do a separate list personally. So because of that, I just stuck to live action. I could literally make a top 5 for all animated, but I decided to just do all live action. So that's just a caveat.
I wish I would have thought of more animated movies because The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2 are freaking amazing.
The
They're
Long Halloween.
so good, dude.
That's all. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Oh,
We could do a whole episode on this, and we probably will. So I kept this because I kept this to live action, but it's fine. All right. Great list. I think ending it with Spectacular Spider-Man was a spectacular way to end it. All right. Mine is like I said, I'm very controversial when it comes to my opinions because I just don't care. Ready? My shows. Here's my list. Loki. I'm doing this as overall. Just overall.
I haven't watched Loki yet, but I hear it's actually great.
It is peak. Okay, so Loki, Gotham, WandaVision, The Flash, and then of course Daredevil. Daredevil's number 1. So let me explain my list. Loki is peak. I think it really storytelling doesn't get better than Loki. I think those the characters and the way that they tell the story that they're telling with the multiverse is so good in Loki. It's so good. Gotham. I think Gotham is extremely underrated. It is, if you just consider it an Elseworlds take, where things happen just a little bit different than they should have. These characters, they start, developing into the characters we know younger and in a different way than they normally do. It's very interesting the way they handle these characters. Super cool seeing all these characters interact with each other in Gotham, and the stories in it are interesting. It's a cool detective show, honestly, with a very young Bruce. Okay, it's not Batman, but this is the world of Batman. That's why it's called Gotham. It's not called Batman. It's Gotham. And it's cool seeing the world of Gotham in this. I love, because the Gotham itself is a character. So it's cool seeing just Gotham in it. If you want bad takes on Batman characters, watch Titans, honestly. But if you want to see an interesting version of Gotham that we don't normally get to see, Gotham, the show, is very interesting. Plus, I've met a lot of people from that show.
Oh,
so
sweet.
I'm biased. Yeah. WandaVision. One of the most creative comic book projects ever. How stylish is it to make your whole first episode essentially, what is it, an I Love Lucy
Yeah.
episode? I mean, come on. It's like so unique. Also, it is chilling. So the character of Wanda Maximoff, that is a peak
One of my
representation
favorite
of a comic book
MCU
character.
characters, and one of the loves of my life, if I'm frankly being honest, which is what the show's about. So
She only does everything. I mean, in this, she is the hero and the villain in a sense. It's fantastic. The way they reconcile it at the end is so unique. It breaks your heart, but it's just an amazing series. Well, first season. I don't know if it'll be a series. I don't think, but okay. The Flash. I have so much nostalgia for The Flash. Seasons 1 and 2 are perfect. Think about okay, we know what happens at the end of the first season from what you said or alluded to, but the end of the second season where he runs back and undoes it.
I wasn't the biggest fan of season 2, if I'm being honest, but that ending had me like, this is gonna be freaking crazy.
So I'm a comic book fan, and the Flash comics are some of my favorite comics. I love Spider-Man and Flash in terms of comic books. I also love Batman, of course, but I love the Flash. I love his history. I love his lore. When I saw that first episode, I think it was The Flash of Two Worlds was the name of it or something like that. They introduced Jay Garrick at the end,
Yeah.
and they had the brick wall between them, symbolizing the two different worlds on each side, and they crossed. And Jay Garrick from Earth 2 comes to Earth 1 to see Barry Allen. I loved it. I was so for it. And then all of the fan theories coming out saying that's not actually Jay Garrick. And then it turns out it wasn't actually Jay Garrick. The real Jay Garrick was a doppelganger of Barry's dad from Earth 1, who was also the Flash from the old series. So it was like, it literally in season 2 doesn't get better than that.
And then
I'm a huge fan of it.
in the Crisis crossover, they had him play that version of Barry Allen.
That version of it.
He did a great job as freaking Jay and Henry, by the way.
Yes.
Shout out to John Wesley Shipp. He's a freaking champion.
Every monologue or whatever he gives is so emotional.
Oh, yeah. Great character.
And think about the one episode of Flash. not enough time or something like that, where the whole episode you're in flash time. Like there's a bomb going off and it literally just goes off and he enters the Speed Force and the whole episode takes place within a second, like a millisecond. It's so interesting. I think what they do with the Flash and his powers and the multiverse and those characters and the versions of them is near perfect, except when you talk about Daredevil. Daredevil gets literally everything right. There's almost nothing about Daredevil except for maybe the Elektra arc that isn't fantastic. That isn't peak. Everything about Daredevil is
Yeah.
absolutely peak. I could get into season 3, but season 3, just if you watch Defenders, the series, and then you notice that Daredevil dies at the end, and then where they take that in season 3 of Daredevil, where they essentially bring him back to life in the way that they do, it's so good. And now they're just going to come out with Daredevil Born Again.
Wait, so he
where it's
actually did die?
You'll see.
Okay.
It's cool the way they do it. But the coolest thing about Daredevil isn't just Daredevil, but it's the characters. So if you watch, I think her name is Nadine, from season 3, the characters, you fall in love with each supporting character in Daredevil, along with Daredevil and Kingpin, which somehow they give you empathy for Kingpin.
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler alert, he runs for mayor in season 3.
Oh.
He becomes the good guy. So, okay. Daredevil's perfect. So we got that out of the way. I think a lot of people will kind of agree and disagree with us, but either way, The Flash and Daredevil are peak. Good to see DC getting something right. And, okay, my movies are very similar to my shows. So if you want to go ahead and start with movies, let's dive into movies. We'll both do our movies, and then we'll end it. No, you list them all. And whatever order you want, and then you gotta justify to me that order.
Okay, let's see.
I'm gonna be tough on you.
Okay, I'm gonna do. Excuse me. All right, I'll just start from the bottom, I guess. X-Men, Days of Future Past, okay. Avengers: Infinity War,
okay.
The Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So, I mean, I've already talked about X-Men, Days of Future Past on our live episode that we did like a year ago, I think. But
that one you're gonna have to justify. Explain to me Days of Future Past in this list.
Days of Future Past. I mean, well, first of all, I
don't disagree.
I've never been the biggest fan of the X-Men movies. Okay. I was obsessed with them as a kid, even though I kind of didn't like them that much. It's hard to explain. I liked like the spectacle stuff, like seeing Nightcrawler and Wolverine, but I didn't like the actual stories because they were. Bryan Singer as a director is just really stale and boring, in my opinion. He brings like no flair to anything. But with that being said, this movie is freaking awesome. Like, it's first of all, like, it's rare that I see a comic book movie where I don't know what's gonna happen. It's a post-apocalyptic future. Mutants are being hunted by Sentinels, and they're being killed off and held in concentration camps. So Kitty, in a way that they never explain, sends Wolverine back in time to his younger body so he can help, find, Charles Xavier and Magneto, who are in very different places, try and hopefully change everything. That starts with Mystique killing Boulevard Trask, played by Peter Dinklage. So I love this because for the first time in a comic book movie, maybe ever, I had no idea what was going to happen. I didn't know how things were going to play out exactly. There were moments where things seemed to get screwed up, and I'm like, oh no, is the timeline going to get messed up now? Is everything going to fail? And then, it's a great humanist story, about choosing your own path and not letting, your past tragedies and trauma turn you into something you're not, that you can choose to change at any moment. And, that is shown with Mystique and Magneto's scenes. That's shown with Charles Xavier and Magneto scenes. That's shown with Wolverine and Charles Xavier scenes. And dude, the best scene in the movie, maybe the best scene in the entire franchise, when young Charles talks to older Charles, and older Charles is like, we need you to hope again. And then younger Charles is like, he's talking about how he feels everybody's pain. And then he's like, that pain will help you be strong. dude, I'm gonna watch that when I'm an old man and just bawl my eyes out. It is just, it's such an inspiring movie. It's such a beautiful movie. It was one of the most tense theater experiences I've ever had. And it gave me a brief glimpse of hope that the X-Men movies could be great.
Yeah.
And then that was soon snuffed out. But
The
I still
ending of that
regard
movie
this
is
movie as
amazing.
something special and something that
Yeah.
I could take all the other movies out of the equation and just have this one and feel like I got the quintessential X-Men experience. I feel like it cuts to the core of what X-Men should be about. And I just love it, man.
I actually love all of those movies, honestly. Even Dark Phoenix. I actually really like Dark Phoenix, but I like all the movies. My least favorite is probably Apocalypse, but
Yeah, that
you know,
movie's
I like
weird.
them all. So my same pick is a completely different movie, but for the same exact reasons, and you're gonna hate me for it. So, anyways, keep going. So that's a good pick.
So Avengers
I
Infinity
like that pick.
War. I mean, what do I need
What
to
can
say?
you say about this movie?
We
Nothing.
were all there. Were you there when this happened? Were you there when that
I
happened?
remember.
Now, granted,
Yes.
there was a moment, when I see Spider-Man, fading away. I'm like, okay, well, this probably isn't permanent because he has another movie coming out in like a year or two. But it was still crazy to see. They right off the bat, Thanos freaking kills Loki and Heimdall. Wait, what? What? Are people dying?
Makes the Hulk look like
in
nothing.
an MC? Yeah, he just bodies the Hulk like a little biatch. He's like, get out of my freaking face, you idiot! Go, I don't know, cry about your freaking failed relationship with Black Widow and shut up. Freaking
Weird choice.
Thanos just shows up and he just has this presence. He just has this gravitas. Freaking Josh Brolin's performance in this movie.
Not my favorite
great.
character. I actually really did not like Thanos at all.
Really?
But yeah, I didn't. Well, I didn't like what they did with his character compared to the comics.
I mean, yeah,
like because here's the thing. My brother, you had the Infinity Gauntlet. Just double the resources. You don't have to take away half the people. Just double the resources.
Well, I mean,
but in
the whole thing with that is that he's insane, and it doesn't really matter what the logical.
What's
thing
more insane? No, but he was. That's the thing. You're right, but he was trying to do it logically. What's more insane is killing half of the universe to impress death. Literally to impress death. Like
it is weird too, because in the credit scene for the
that's my rant.
In the credit scene for the first Avengers movie, he's like shown like when like somebody says like to fight the humans is to court death, and then he like turns around and then smiles, and then that's not the version of Thanos we got, which is weird. That was a retcon.
Okay, that's my little spoiler alert. It's in my list too. Okay, it's the greatest movie ever, but I have my
I would have liked to have seen something like that too. You're not alone, but I think like he's such an interesting character because what like having villains that are just crazy and they just love like Emperor Palpatine is great. I love villains like that, but I have a soft spot for villains who think that they're doing something noble, even when this person's freaking crazy. And his relationship with Gamora and how that all turns out freaking floored me. Zoe Saldana gives maybe her best performance in the entire MCU. She is
the most
incredible.
Underrated actress ever.
Sorry. That's hard to agree. The freaking it still has too many jokes like a lot of their movies, but it has some like really hard-hitting dramatic scenes that just surprised me.
Yeah.
The freaking seeing how they juggled all these characters and they interact with each other, and it's really fun. And somehow it never feels like it's throwing off the pacing. Like it's such a tight, efficient movie that just keeps building and building and building and going and going, and then you get to that climax.
The one thing this movie does,
which was absolutely
perfectly.
crazy.
Yeah.
The freaking climax for this movie had me. I thought when Thanos stabs Tony with the part of his armor, I thought he died. I literally jumped in my seat like when he gets stabbed. I was like, and then like the people close to me were like, "Is this guy okay? What's his problem?" But it freaking made me emotional. It just made me like speechless, because I couldn't believe we got this out of an MCU movie. It was just crazy.
When Rocket gets snapped away and
Oh God.
Groot was like, what is he? He says, "I am Groot," and what is it? James Gunn
Yeah,
said
he
he
was
was
like saying "dad"
"Dad."
or
Yeah,
something. Yeah, dude.
Just
Yeah, dude.
ripped your
Rocket in
heart
this
out.
movie is great. Thor in it, dude. Shout out to Chris Hemsworth and
Thor.
Bradley Cooper. They need their
That's Thor's best
Give them their
performance.
flowers. Give Bradley
Yeah,
Cooper his flowers. Okay. Wait, hold on.
you're fine. Keep going. I have the same picks on my list, so I'll talk about it when I get to
All
mine.
right. The Batman. So here's a secret. I mean, a thing about me. It's not a secret now because I'm telling you. But as a kid, I liked the Batman movies a lot. You know, the Joel Schumacher movies were really fun,
Me too.
really stupid, but I think Batman Forever is kind of good, and then Batman and Robin's
I
atrocious, but
love Batman and
it's just
Robin.
fun. It's just silly.
Hold on. Can I show you something real quick before you
Go,
continue?
go on.
You know how you just said you know Batman Forever's kind of good, and then you said Batman and Robin's terrible. I love Batman and Robin, and I literally have a George Clooney Batman
Oh
Funko Pop.
wow!
I love it
I
so much,
mean,
dude. That's one of
that's
my
the
favorite
whole
movies.
reason they created that version of the costume to sell toys and stuff.
Hey, they got me.
Yeah, but I never related to Batman ever in my life. I related to
Yeah,
Spider-Man as a kid because I got picked on in school. He got picked on in school. That was the first time I saw a superhero movie where I was like, "Oh, the main
yeah.
character is like me. This is weird. I didn't know they could be like this. That I could actually see myself in them. That's crazy." So, fast forward to me seeing the Batman, and I've had my bouts with depression, anxiety. I've had some things in my childhood, like we all have, that they leave scars. Not really. I've experienced things in my personal life. And like so, when I saw Bruce Wayne as just this dude who just when
Was
he walks
struggling.
around in public and it's like he's not even there, like he's just a
Yeah,
freaking ghost, a phantom among the living, and the only way he finds solace is by diving into the dark parts of his mind. That's always been a staple of the character. But with this movie, with Robert Pattinson's performance and Matt Reeves' astounding direction, I finally got
so
it.
good.
I finally related to Bruce Wayne. And after the movie, I just couldn't stop thinking about that. I couldn't stop thinking about how, you know, this is a Batman movie that's really inspiring because it does what, like, really no Batman movie does. It actually gives him a character arc. He learns that justice can't always come from the shadows, that sometimes you have to make yourself uncomfortable and be the symbol of light and hope, even though that's not what you feel like you can be. And that is so
And at the end,
inspiring.
when he's holding up the flare,
Dude, that was.
it's so good.
I thought he was gonna like jump into the water and electrocute himself and just off himself right there, and I was like, "What's he doing?" But no, but no, dude, it's just such a beautiful movie. It's just such an inspiring movie, and it's the first time, it did it did for me with Batman what Man of Steel did for me for Superman, which was
Yeah,
make me go, "Oh, I relate to this person. I relate to this person finally. I have a reason to like them." And I just think the whole movie's great. It's so well made, and yeah, it's just one of the few comic book movies that's been released in like recent years that I think about it and it was like that wasn't just like a fun experience. That was something that hit me right here. Which
yeah.
brings me to my favorite comic book movie of all time, even still, after 6 years, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I
Huh.
mean, dude, I was stoked for this movie. I didn't know what to expect. It seemed weird, like Sony's doing an animated Spider-Man movie about Miles Morales, and it's gonna have all these other characters, all these other variants of Spider-Man, and it's not connected to anything. Who let this happen? What's going on? I think Avi Arad's one of the producers on this. I think this was like the one time that like they had him under lock and key. They were like, "You're not allowed to do anything stupid, okay? You don't mess with this movie. You just sit over there and we will ask you questions when we want to ask you questions." And then he spent like 90% of the production napping and watching movies and playing video games. He didn't really have much to do with this movie at all. I mean, I didn't know anything about Miles Morales other than that, like, I've heard like people say that they didn't like him when he first came out in the comics because he was like just young black Peter Parker. Like, he didn't feel like a distinct character. So in this movie, you know, right off the bat, he loves music. He's creative. You know, he's kind of in his own head. He wants to do things his way. And I mean, that's kind of who I am as a person. You know, I've always loved music. I've always felt like an outsider, you know, that I didn't really belong where I was. And, you know, he had, you know, I can relate to him feeling
That
like
first movie's so good.
I can relate to like, you know, feeling like your dad has like a certain way he thinks you should live your life and not wanting to live your life that way. You know, that really resonated with me. And then, you know,
Yeah.
freaking Spider-Man dying. That freaking dude, there are 4 scenes that every time I watch this movie, they make me cry. That whole montage after Spider-Man dies is one of them, dude. Like, I was, you know, because that's like my hero, you know, that's my guy, and he dies. He dies right in front of my eyes. And it's like, oh, I didn't expect that. That's, oh my God, you know. And then, you know, the speech that
That movie is so good.
Mary Jane gives at the funeral that inspires Miles, that Stanley cameo hit me like a truck because that was not long after he had passed away, dude. Seeing him in that,
Yeah.
oh my God, I was a mess, you know. And you know, and then, you know, the whole thing with Peter B. Parker, you know,
I loved his character in it.
yeah, we haven't really seen a Peter Parker who just lost his way. You know, he's sad, he's just hopeless. You know, he just sits in his room, eats pizza, watches seahorse documentaries, and cries in his bathtub. Like, you know, like that hit me too, because that was, you know, like a period in my life where I was struggling with a lot of stuff. And, you know, it was like seeing my hero grow up with me and, you know, like experience things that I was experiencing as I was getting older. You know, I love, like, Spider-Man's one of those characters where like every adaptation, it's like he's growing with me and he's adapting to struggles I'm going through, and I can always relate to some version of him, you know, at some point.
I love these fresh
I
adaptations.
freaking love,
yeah.
you know. And Spider-Man Noir was funny. Nicolas Cage, you know, he was great. You know, Spider-Ham was funny. You know, the freaking messages, the themes, the animation is second to none. The action scenes are bonkers. Miles' story, he's become one of my favorite characters in all of comic book media. I didn't expect to relate to him as much as I did. And I mean, it's just, I'd say it's basically a perfect movie. You know, it has everything I want from a comic book movie and a Spider-Man movie. And, you know, I don't know if we'll ever get anything quite like it, you know, quite like these movies, you know, but
They were special.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially that first one. Everything now is just going to have to do something different because you can't recreate that. And I think that's, you know, that's the issue with greatness. So I have a lot of, not a lot of same picks, but this is going to be interesting. All right. You ready?
Yeah, I guess.
That was a great pick, though. I was going to say, as you were saying that, but I was going to wait till the end. After the Star Wars retrospectives, I really think we should do Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
We should do a Spider-Man retrospective series going
That'd
through
be
all
fun.
of the movies and then the Spider-Verse movies. So I think that would be very interesting.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Very interesting. It'd be a roller coaster. So to kick off my list, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
I expected that. I agreed. I think that is a underrated movie.
I love Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. My next pick, The Flash. I'll get to that. My next pick, Infinity War, then The Batman, and then Guardians Volume 3. Those top 3 are, in my opinion, the pinnacle of comic book movies. And then, of course, the Flash and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness are kind of just my personal picks. These are all personal, very personal. So, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, it was almost, Sam Raimi. I have a big bias towards him. I love Sam Raimi. And then the way he did Wanda as the villain in a multiverse movie involving Doctor Strange, whatever you want to call them, the Avengers of that one world. It's super interesting. America is a really cool character that allowed them to access the multiverse. I think it was a super interesting movie. So I love the horror aspects of it with Wanda, her being this insane, sorcerer. And then, of course, you had Doctor Strange, who is Sorcerer Supreme, essentially. Very interesting. I love the battles, the set pieces, the way they use magic in this. The battle where they're throwing music at each other.
Yeah.
And it plays into the music design. I think it's amazing. The performances, and of course, like I said, the directing. I think it's a peak comic book movie. Then we get The Flash. So, The Flash was so emotional to me for no reason. I think it ended up being, this crazy, Back to the Future type time travel movie, which I love. Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies ever. But this had so much emotion to it because of his relationship with his mom and his dad, especially his mom in this. The way they did Barry and his mom in this movie, I love that they didn't focus on Iris. They focused on his relationship with his parents in this movie. It was so emotional. I think the fun, set pieces with him and Batman, and of course, Supergirl. Oh, the characters and the performances in this movie were great, and they were fun. But at the end of the day, I think what they did in this movie with the time travel aspect of him wanting to do anything, going to the most extreme lengths, even turning himself into the villain just to change the past, really showed how far he wanted to go. But then at the end had to accept, obviously that he couldn't change the outcome. So, of course, they had to kind of play with it at the end with, what they did. But anyways, it's a comic book movie. I loved it though. Super emotional. I love how the Flash's powers lend to time travel antics and multiverse, almost like multiverse type of things with alternate realities. I love it. So, Infinity War. It's in my top 3, of course. Infinity War. I remember where I was at. You all know what it is with Infinity War. We don't need to sit here and explain Infinity War to you. Grab some popcorn, watch it, and go on a roller coaster ride. It's insane. Now the Batman. A lot of the same reasons you put. I love Matt Reeves as a director. I think he is absolutely amazing. What they did in this movie, making it so grounded, even literally, I'll just say it, emo Batman, okay, whatever. He works. This representation of Bruce before he knew how to put on the mask of Bruce Wayne, where it was truly you seeing Bruce Wayne's pain and his anguish coming back and just really wanting to take vengeance out upon the criminals of Gotham, juxtaposed with him also learning how to be the hero that the innocent people of Gotham needed, was perfectly orchestrated and executed in this movie. I think that's the best praise I can give it. Some of the best visuals too. I mean, that Batmobile, the stuff that happened with him between him and the Penguin. I mean, the physicality of Robert Pattinson blew me away, actually. And then, of course, I'll end this by talking about Guardians Volume 3. I don't think any comic book movie is as emotional and heartbreaking as Guardians Volume 3 in so many different ways. James Gunn honestly outdid himself with this. I'm not the biggest James Gunn fan, but in this instance, I am. Give him all the credit in the world for this movie. It is, I mean, Star-Lord is actually he's one of my favorite comic book characters. Up there with Daredevil, The Flash, Batman, Spider-Man, and then Star-Lord. I love Star-Lord as a character. I just relate with him. So this is a very biased pick for me as Guardians Volume 3. But of course, seeing the character development with Star-Lord, Rocket, Groot, even Adam Warlock had a cool character in this movie.
Yeah, dude.
The villain
I talked about it in
was a villain.
live episode.
Yes,
but like
yes.
I
Watched a lot. Episode 21.
every character arc like resonated with me in like like I said, like that was the movie that every now and then we see a movie that addresses like certain things that we're like struggling with. This movie
Yeah.
did it. It was like freaking James Gunn was just like
I don't know how
mind
he did it.
melding with me, and I'm like, whoa, dude, relax, take it easy.
Didn't we watch this
Yeah.
together? Yeah, we watched this
Yeah.
movie together. Yeah. So this movie, I cannot talk enough about it. I think it might always just be up there for me as my favorite comic movie ever until in the future something really drastic happens. But Guardians Volume 3, it's too good. So anyways, that's my list. It's super subjective, obviously, but I think I explained it. Anyways, it's always fun talking about our favorite movies, favorite shows. I think it's interesting talking about the underrated aspects of these comic book movies because, like I said at the beginning, a lot of these, we talk about overrated comic book movies because a lot of them are overrated.
Yeah.
But there are some gems in there, even overrated movies that have underrated aspects to them, which I think is what we really dove into with our list right here. So, anyways, that is it for us talking about these comic book movies. I think we talked enough. We talked about a lot, but this is just our outlet to get on here and rant. It's controversial. Go listen to our Star Wars retrospectives. They're controversial. We rant, we get a lot of mixed feedback about it, but we can only get on here and give you our thoughts, our perspectives. And all I want is for it to be controversial. I don't care, if you love it or hate it. Just love it or hate it. You know what I mean? That's what we try to do. We try to put it out there. I don't want to just put out something that's random and mediocre and you just get the same thoughts and opinions as everywhere else on the internet. We give our harsh and our critical takes authentically. With that, Tony, what's your final take on the state and, underrated aspects of the comic book industry, comic book media?
I mean,
You find the hidden gems.
For a while, I haven't been really looking forward to any like upcoming things. Although I did recently see the Marvels, and I thought it was quite lovely.
I liked it.
I liked
it
a
was
lot.
good.
Yeah, Iman.
I love the Singing Planet.
My daughter.
She is fantastic.
That is my
She's
daughter.
fantastic.
And if any of you are mean to her, I'm gonna hunt you down, and it's gonna be like a Taken movie. So just watch out. No, but so like every now and then I'll see like a comic book movie that if I don't think it's great, I'm like, oh, that surprised me with how much I ended up enjoying it. So I think I'm gonna stay somewhat open-minded to things, but like as a whole, like I still haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I still haven't seen Black Widow. I still haven't seen Black Panther.
Oh, Black Widow's good.
I just don't care about those. But like,
they're just whatever.
I'm gonna check out Loki. Obviously, Beyond the Spider-Verse will come out in
5 years.
Yeah, I'm not super like enthused about like comic book media now, but I mean, there's still like I want to be excited for stuff. So like the only thing that I can hope is that things still get released that actually look interesting and that look like they're trying to be creative and not just like assembly line blockbuster number 25,952.
Yeah. And they realize that, and by they I mean Kevin Feige and the MCU, and I'm hoping DC as well. But yeah, when it's not an assembly line, just put out stuff, it ends up being better. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to turn these episodes into an assembly line type of production here. We just put out stuff when we feel like putting out stuff because we only want to put out stuff that we feel like putting out. We don't want to put out stuff just to get it out. I would have loved to have been, at episode 50 by now, but I don't want to rush what we do. So I will literally just make the episodes into parts because we just get out what we want to get out, and who cares if it takes forever. A lot of podcasts aren't that way because how can you be successful by just not really releasing stuff? I don't care about that. We want to just put out what we want to put out. And that's how it's going to be with this podcast. I don't care. So I can't wait for the next episode to get to episode 50 here shortly. But, until then, Tony, we're going to have fun with these next 6 episodes, talking about whatever we talk about. And then episode 50 is going to be a big one. Let's just plan something fun for episode 50.
Awesome. Yeah. Can't wait.
So until then, thanks for coming on, talking about all this. And thanks for listening, guys. This will be up on YouTube, on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, pretty much everywhere. So let me know nicely in the comment section what your most underrated comic book movies and shows are. So with that, we'll see you next time. Thanks, Tony.